they was calling Errol Spence the Boogeyman. And my reply was, how is he the Boogeyman when I'm chasing him?
Greatness can come from anywhere.
I draw inspiration from the Filipino people and to God and my family. Hard work is the most difficult things in boxing.
Let's get into it.
Now look, I don't know what's going on with Errol, but I remember when Bud was doing his rounds, he said, to my knowledge, I ain't hear nothing about the rematch clause. Steven Espinosa was also asked about it, and he said that Errol Spence was adamant about having the rematch, naturally at 154. The last time that I checked back in with Errol was in Ibiza, Spain. After the fight, he was relaxing, downtime, some much needed R&R with his family, with his girl, relaxing, kind of detangle things, get his mind right. Because after a fight like that, after taking such a beating, especially the first loss, first time you've been knocked down, the Errol was knocked down multiple times in that fight, 3 to be exact, ultimately wound up getting stopped and knocked out in the 9th round. That's a lot for Errol Spence to process. But you said it yourself, shout out to Errol. He didn't make any excuses. He said the better man won. So Errol, what do you really want to do? If you really want to rematch Terence Crawford, he said he don't mind doing it at 154. In fact, Bud already said, once I move up, I ain't coming back down. Okay, so if you guys have that fight at 154, the belts are still going to be at 147. If you're Errol Spence, you have to ask yourself, after such a dominant win by Crawford in the first fight, even if I look better in the second fight, what if I lose? Now you have to play that what if scenario. This is Errol Spence and his whole team, Derek James, everybody, because everybody was salty after that fight. When Terence Crawford went into that corner to congratulate Errol, to congratulate his team, Derek James was visibly upset. His team was, okay, that's what's up, you know what I mean, congratulate, blah, 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 but they was upset. And in my opinion, you shouldn't be upset with Crawford because Crawford did exactly what he said he was going to go into that ring and do. Bomac, he outcoached Derek James, the coach of the year. They both did a lot of talking. This is Derek James, Bomac, whole team. But to a degree, Errol and Bud, although they was kind of clamoring, it was a little bit of back and forth, ultimately, they kind of kept it respectful. They kind of kept the G between the two during the build-up because a fight of this magnitude sells itself. Over 650,000 pay-per-view buys, did excellent at the gate, only behind Gervonta Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia, so the numbers are there. And in the second fight, the numbers will be there because guess what? People want to see if Errol's going to come back and look better than he did in the first fight. Because after this second fight, then everybody's really going to see, okay, this is how Errol Spence's career is going to wind up ending up. I ain't saying Spence's career is over, but you can no longer mention Terence Crawford's name. You can't say this, you can't say that, you can't even mention a third. Terence Crawford is pound for pound a better fighter. You can't say nothing bad about him. If you do, naturally, you're hating. If your team do, they hating. If your fans do, they hating. And I got a lot of respect for both guys. I got a lot of respect for both fan bases. But from an analytical standpoint, when you analyze both of these guys, the skill sets, I told you guys before these guys even fought, Bud just has a deeper toolbox, and he showed that in the first fight. He went on record and said initially he wanted to come out and fight and step the Errol. But after talking to Shakur, his team, they was like, you know what, go out and box him. So if he made Errol look like that by going into that ring on fight night and putting on such a fabulous boxing display, what if he really just stepped the Errol and banged it out with Errol? Because in spots, Bud did bang it out with Errol, and he won. He won in mid-range game. He won the inside game. And it's been proven that Crawford has a chin. Errol did catch Bud a couple of times. Nothing groundbreaking, but he caught Bud a couple of times. And Bud already said, you know what I mean? Like, when he caught me, he was like, damn, he was like, this is it. This is what everybody was talking about. Okay, I can take this. Let me go ahead and do what I got to do. And what'd he do? He stepped the Errol. Errol said himself, man, like, when the bell ring, I'm stepping. And I know he will be stepping it too. And guess what? They both did. But Errol, he ultimately wound up getting stepped on. Yes, he fought a pretty good fight, man. He went out on his shield. Even after he got stopped, his legs wasn't underneath him. You know what I'm saying? He had a stanky leg. Bud told him that too. He said, I'm gonna do like I did Benavidez. You know what I'm saying? But he did Benavidez even worse, you know what I'm saying? But credit to Benavidez because his leg was already jacked up, but the uppercut didn't help. But the same thing for Errol, you know what I'm saying? When Bud caught him, Bud hurt him. Bud hurt Errol multiple times in that fight, plain and simple. But Errol Spence's time is almost up. What is Errol Spence going to do? If you want the rematch, Bud already said, man, this guy, he made the fight happen. If he wants the rematch, I'm there. But you hear Bud. Bud is already talking about Jermell Charlo. He's talking about fight Canelo at 168. So his future is already on his mind. Right now, Errol Spence is the past. And it doesn't seem like he wants that rematch because you don't hear Errol Spence, apart from Steven Espinosa, really coming out and talking to the people or anything. It's almost a month after the fight, man. And Errol is still, you know what I mean? Errol's still pretty quiet. You really not hearing too much from Errol. You know what I'm saying? What's going on? From the team, like I said, Steven Espinosa, he said Errol's, he's adamant about it. He wants the rematch. Okay, so what's going on with the rematch then? Because 30 days is almost up.
Fatality.